There's a lot of value tied up in Turkey and East Africa. We're confident we're going to realise value from those at the appropriate time. Cameroon is looking fantastic. We really believe that as a new frontier, it ticks all the boxes.
Why on earth did you come into an unholy mess of a company and not find a clean vehicle for Cameroon? Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. First of all, thanks so much for watching this video. If you like it, give us a thumbs up and please leave us your comments below. It just helps us understand the types of questions you'd like us to ask, your feedback on how we're doing, and indeed what you think of the company itself. And if you haven't already done so, please click the button in the corner of the screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And of course, for more videos like this, click the notification bell. We spoke earlier today to Tim Livesey, CEO of Oriole Resources. They're an African-based explorer. Now, Tim joined about 2 years ago and inherited a bunch of legacy assets, as he calls them, projects in Turkey. Seem quite complicated, and they're trying to unbundle those and create some kind of shareholder value. Can't put a number on it today. They've also got a farm out project with Gold in Senegal. Again, struggling to put a value on that, but that may be worth something in the future. Plus a few other kind of stragglers there where, again, Tim is trying to monetize those over the coming months, slightly hampered by the COVID issue at the moment, he says. Their project that they want to focus on is Cameroon, where they see lots of potential. They've got 2 licenses at the moment, are applying for more. Tim talks us through how he hopes to develop that. We ask him how he's going to fund it. So quite a involved conversation. He's very honest and realistic about his position and what he has to do and what he's inherited. Take a look in the description below about some of the different topics we discuss. Anything interesting in particular, click on the relevant timestamp. That'll take you to that part of the video. Enjoy what Tim has to say. Hello, Tim. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Where are you holed up?
I'm hiding out in rural North Yorkshire, trying to avoid crowds.
That's lovely, the best of times. So, yeah, good. Well, new story for us and our viewers and subscribers and followers. So why don't you kick off, give us a 1-minute summary and I'll take it from there. Okay,
so Oriole is effectively a reincarnation of an older company, Stratex International. I came on board a couple of years ago and brought in new management team, new board of directors. And we are primarily an African-focused early-stage explorer. We have some legacy assets at various stages, right up to sort of royalty levels. We are focused in Cameroon on our own projects, and we have a significant license holding in the KK Inlier in Senegal, which is joint ventured out to Gold at present. We are basically trying to discover new frontiers in gold in Africa.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for the summary. So I'd like to get into your thinking. You came in a couple of years ago. You brought a new team in. You obviously have come to the table with a plan. What is it?
Coming to the table with a plan. The company's plan prior to me joining kind of fell apart in 2017. Stratex initially started off as an early stage explorer in Turkey and East Africa. And from 2006 to sort of 2016, they identified and developed some really nice assets, which brought a lot of money back into the company. Then in 2017, there was a push by the company to go into more advanced stage projects. And the shareholders basically got split down the middle. It was a bit of a Brexit vote, a bit of a 48-52 type scenario. And there was a requisition which took out the CEO at the time and left the company with a significantly eroded share price. The kitty was depleted and a little bit rudderless and no real direction. And that's when I was asked if I'd be interested in coming in and trying to do a bit of a turnaround on it. I'd come out of Eastern Europe. I'd been with Reservoir Minerals and then Nevsun in Serbia, Čukaru Peki project, which had been a great success for Reservoir and subsequently for Nevsun. So the idea was to come in and take the company back to its roots. I have a long background in gold exploration with Barrick Gold. And I had previously worked extensively in Africa and the Middle East. So the idea was to get back into the company, rebuild it, bring in a new management team, a new board, rebrand it. So in the first 6 months, we brought in Bob Smeaton, our CFO. We brought in 2 new non-exec directors, John McGloin, our chairman, and David Pelham, non-exec. And we brought in some new projects, which were actually Cameroon focused projects, which were projects that I was aware of from previous times. On literally the day I came in as the CEO in March 2018, we had just signed that day, or the company had just signed that day, a joint venture agreement on the Senegalese asset, Sonala, which at the time was called Dalafin. And IM Gold were earning in on that license. So basically, I came into a company with a great technical team and a great technical discovery history, but with no assets under their own direct management. They were all JV'd out, stuff in Turkey, legacy stuff in East Africa, Senegal. So Cameroon was something that I'd identified previously personally. Had an interest in it from my time with Reservoir, where Reservoir Minerals had some assets there. They'd made some gold discoveries back in 2012. And I was aware these projects were available. I knew the partner. I put it past the board, and they carried out an independent review to make sure that we weren't jumping in just on my say-so, but on some good geological and technical input. And we decided to go ahead. And we've spent the last year and a half, 2 years, progressing those assets and expanding our position in Cameroon as an early stage new frontier. Cameroon's got a lot of interest for us, and we believe it will have a lot of interest for other players in the coming years as well.
Right. Okay. A lot of moving parts there. A lot of moving parts, and I'm interested that you used the phrase legacy. You're not taking ownership of what you inherited. Where are you?
Well, it's ours now, and we have to get value back from it in some way. Some of the stuff has, with all of these old projects, there's always some hairy bits around them that need sorting out. And we have been dealing with that quite successfully. There's been some outstanding cost issues and so on. But the way we as a team look at the historical assets are, these had value and they retain value, and although they can add value to the company, they're not necessarily where we want to be 100% focused. We want to benefit from them. A lot of good work went into them, but we don't want to necessarily continue all of them under our own direction. So we need to realize value from them, as we've done most recently, I guess, with the Tembo sales, with the position we had in Tembo. This was something that we weren't looking to continue. We weren't looking to expand our position in Tanzania, as an example. We had a shareholding there that was effectively just an investment sitting doing nothing, and we felt that we would be able to better employ that capital.
But I'm interested you used the word, you've successfully done that. That's what you said at the beginning of the response. Tembo, for example, you've got some money. How much money did you get for that?
We realised about £170,000.
And how much has the company actually spent on that investment to date?
To be honest, prior to my engagement, I don't know what the actual cost was. There were some, a lot of the shareholding there was shares in kind. We, I believe, supplied technical support by way of Bob Foster, who was one of the founders of the company, a very knowledgeable geologist. And in return for his time, the company built up shareholding. So I couldn't put a direct coin number on it.
Right.
But I think it's more important to focus on the value that you can get from that money rather than how much went in. It's a bit like a private company saying, well, I spent 2 million, therefore it's worth 2 million. You spend 2 million, it could be worth 10 million, it could be worth nothing. It depends on what progress that asset is making.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is, if I'm a long-standing shareholder, I'm thinking, okay, we spent more money on it than we're getting now, so that's a loss. You're saying, well, let's not focus on that. Let's get some money, considering the position we're in at the moment, and do something with that money to hopefully regain any value lost and more.
Yeah.
And get focused, because it was a distraction. Okay, so can I talk about some of the legacy bits? Because I want to kind of park those so that we can focus on Cameroon, because that seems to be the new golden child here. Okay, in this. So let's look at Turkey. You talked about Turkey. So you used the phrase, you said it kind of fell apart, and the company sort of fell apart or lost its way a bit in 2017. So can you tell me about what have you, as a new CEO, inherited there? Because I know there's some NSRs there, which is potentially great, but I couldn't kind of work out what the value of Turkey was today to you.
It's very difficult to put a number on. Turkey was the basis of the company initially. This is where most of the large recouped cash value came from sale of Turkish assets, discoveries made by the Turkish team, advanced by the Turkish team, and then those assets sold off, at a sort of a resource definition stage. So Turkey, we have a portfolio of 6 different royalties in Turkey at the moment. We also have some an outstanding legal case for recoupment of a fee that was paid to the tax authorities there. And we also have some success-based fees which are due on 2 of the projects. So it's a bit of a smorgasbord of value. It's very difficult to put a definitive number on each one of those individually. Collectively, in the past, the most recent asset sale there was probably Oxford, which brought in about $24 million, I think, all up, with our NSR position as well. So, we're now down to NSRs in the range of 1.5% to 2% on most of those assets. Most of them gold. We also have a copper royalty asset, and we also have some unusual things. We have an antimony asset, for example. Now, these are all non-core, and basically they are worth what we can get for them. It's I don't think appropriate to say, well, we spent X amount on those licenses, therefore it must give us X amount back. It's more a case of, okay, the company, a long-standing shareholder, for example, may have come in under Stratex in 2007, when times were great, or 2012, 13, 14. We are not Stratex. Stratex essentially stopped in 2017. The requisition was an attempt to take the company towards more advanced stage projects, away from early stage projects. And the shareholding was split, and the majority went saying, we want to stay in early stage exploration. So that's exactly what we're doing. So the value that's tied up in Turkey is really, the value to us is how do we realize any capital out of that at all, any short-term cash, because we can create more additional value with short-term cash in Cameroon than we can by sitting on legacies.
So let's talk about that. So there was a sort of tax liability which the board covers, about £1 million-ish.
$1 million, yeah.
$1 million, sorry. And you're trying to get that back. How long have you been trying to get it back? What have you written that off, or do you expect to actually be able to recoup that?
Well, the tax liability, just a bit of background on this to clarify what the previous board did and why they did it. And I have to say, I agree with what they did, and I would do exactly the same again if I was in the same position. Under Turkish law, as a local Turkish director of a Turkish company, you are personally liable. Now, there was a sale of an asset which had a tax liability on it, and the partner who was due to pay that tax liability didn't pay. So the taxman came after our Turkish exploration manager, who was the local director of the company. And the choice was that somebody paid the outstanding tax liability, or our Turkish director went to jail. And then you negotiate it whilst he's sitting in jail. Now, first of all, that's a very poor position to be in from a negotiation standpoint. So for that reason, on its own, that would be enough to say, okay, well, let's pay the tax man and then deal with the local partner. But just from I think it's morally reprehensible to treat your staff like that. So I would have done exactly what the board did at the time, which was pay the debt to the tax bill to the Turkish state, and then chase the Turkish partner. Now the court is aware. The court has acknowledged the debt. That Turkish partner has also some other legal cases against him, and so it's a matter of due court process. We don't know how long that'll take. It's been in play since before we joined the company, since before Bob and I came in, so over 2 years already. We don't know. We don't really have any clear visibility on how long that's going to take. So have we written it off? Well, mentally, it's not something that's high on our list of, well, we're expecting this money to come in. But obviously it is something that we are continuing to progress to the extent that we can through the Turkish legal system.
Is that costing you money?
No. Our Turkish team has they haven't done a pulled cash call from us in well over a year. We took a position back in, it would be mid-18, late 18. Because of all this value that's tied up in all these different pots, shall we say, in Turkey, we certainly wanted to retain the team. It's important for us to, and by team I'm talking one exploration manager, one geo, an admin, and a financial person. So we wanted to retain them because the only way we are ever going to see value back out of Turkey is by having our own people on the ground. So what we did was we said, okay, we don't want to incur this at a cost. So let's create an opportunity for our Turkish team to operate effectively as consultants. And we set up, under the Stratex Madençelik, the Turkish entity, we set up a consultancy service. So they've been operating, actually creating value for the company, covering all of their costs. And what we've been doing with that income is we've been addressing some of the historical employee liabilities that have been allowed to build up in Turkey under the previous management team. So when we do get to the point where where we've got an exit point for Turkey, we then have the opportunity to either exit with no outstanding liabilities from the company's side, which means our team is paid up to date and everybody's happy, or we can maintain that team and carry on running a consultancy if it's profitable, and then recoup money back into Oriole. But that may basically create another distraction that we don't necessarily want. So, but that's a decision for the future. That's not something.
Okay, so I can see why you're struggling to put a value on it, because there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of which seem to be, it's tidying up. You're kind of clearing the decks. So I think it's probably reasonable, I should say, for long-standing shareholders to say that situation is not going to get resolved anytime soon. Let's focus on the future. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think the thing is, focus on the fact that Oriole is a different company to where Stratex was in 2017.
I got to ask, why on earth did you come in to an unholy mess of a company and not find a clean vehicle for Cameroon? He said with hindsight.
No, not at all. To be honest, I knew Stratex, the company. I was aware of it for my time when I was the exploration manager for Europe and the Middle East for Barrick. I'd actually reviewed some of the Stratex Turkish assets for Barrick. I knew Bob Foster, one of the founders, and Bob personally approached me after Bob was sort of stepping out of the company, stepping down during, on the run up to the requisition, and then we had a situation where Bob had to be called back in to be the interim CEO and try and find a way out after the requisition in November 17. So Bob approached me and said, Tim, I need a bit of help. Would you be interested? I had just come out of about 3.5 years in Serbia, very successful run with Reservoir Minerals. We sold Reservoir for 360 million to Nevsun, and then a successful kickstart for Nevsun, which was eventually sold for 1.5 billion to Zijin. So I was in a position where I'm a bit of a philanthropist when it comes to the mining industry. I have a soft spot for the underdog, and Bob came and said, listen, company's in a bit of a state. I really don't want to have to spend the next 5 years getting it back on track. We have some legacy shareholders there that really need looked after. Do you fancy coming in? I had a look at it and I thought, God, this is going to be a challenge. But that's what makes it interesting. I could have just gone out and used a private vehicle to chase Cameroon. In a private vehicle, it wouldn't have had quite the energy and excitement around it that I have with this. And the team is very good. I mean, underlying all this, despite the push and pull from more advanced to less, early stage, late stage, early stage.
Okay.
The technical team is really competent, really smart people.
Okay, well, let's finish off on the guys. So in terms of the non-Cameroon stuff, because I want to get that off the table. So you've got a 27% share in Thani Stratex. Is that right? Is that what? Can you put a value on that?
So Thani Stratex is now split into Thani Stratex Resources and Thani Stratex Djibouti. They're now two private companies. They were one private company, and they were formed by the merger of Thani Emirates, who previously had a joint venture with AngloGold Ashanti, and it was called Thani Ashanti. They had some projects. Stratex International had some projects in East Africa. And so they merged the two groups together, and each putting their licenses in effectively to create this private vehicle, with the idea that the private vehicle would progress the assets a little bit and then list, get some public money and take it forward. So there's quite a lot of money being spent collectively on some of those assets through Anglo Ashanti's time, through Antofagasta was involved on some of the assets for a while. But effectively, these are two private companies, and we have a smaller shareholding in Thani Stratex Djibouti than we have in Thani Stratex Resources. So Thani Stratex Resources effectively has some projects in Egypt, a resource of around about a couple of 100,000 ounces announced by, I think it was a CSA resource estimate from a few years ago. Those assets haven't had any investment in for well over 2 years. In Djibouti, the Djibouti assets, these licenses were actually previously Stratex. They were our licenses previously. And they attracted the attention of an investment from Ahmed Fund 3 a number of years ago. They took a 50% position in Djibouti. And again, over the last 2 years, nothing really has happened in Djibouti. And then recently, the two projects, the countries have been split into two private companies. So we own, I think, 11 or 12% of Thani Stratex Djibouti now. But that is it's now got a new management team under NurtureX with financial support from Ahmed Fund 3. And they're progressing the exploration, or they were until COVID, in Djibouti. So a couple of 100,000 ounces in Egypt. Unsure about the tenure of the license there. These are not assets that we control. These are just effectively investments. And Djibouti is probably likely to be the more valuable in the longer term because it's having active exploration right now on a brand new frontier.
Can you put a value on it today?
I would guess, and I would be guessing. Ahmed Fund 3 came in initially, I think, for about 2.5 million, and then I think they're coming in for another 2.5 million. So, it's in the millions. Our position in it would be less, probably between 500,000 and 1 million at our shareholding on a private company basis. But as I say, private company valuation is very difficult to do.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I'm hearing. I think that's a long way of saying not sure yet.
Not sure yet.
Got it.
Looking to see how the current exploration does, and looking to see whether there is any interest in the market to get involved in that area.
Let's go to Senegal. Let's go to Senegal because obviously IAMGOLD is involved.
Yes.
What's the situation with that today?
So the license there, the Dalafin license, as it was called, was relinquished and renewed last year. So we were able to, with our partner EMC, Stratex EMC is the shareholder vehicle there now. We were able to relinquish the entire license area, reapply and grant the entire license area. We had to rename it, so we've renamed it Sonala. But effectively that 472 square kilometre plot in the middle of the KKN layer is now secure tenure for the next 10 years. So the license is strong. IAMGOLD are just going into year 3 of their investment. We went through the work program with them in January, February time. March is the anniversary.
What are they obliged to do with it?
It's a split earning. The first phase is to reach 51%, and to do that, they've got to spend 4 million over 4 years. And then to take that 51% to 70%, they need to spend another 4 million over 2 years. So they're going into year 3 now. They've maintained their investment position up till now. They've been focused initially in the south. There's 5 targets. The Sonala license is quite a long, thin license. There's 5 targets spread along its length. The first 2 years, IAMGOLD really focused in the south. Medina Barfay was their initial target. These are two anomalies that we identified under Stratex originally. And those 2 are within truckable distance, within a 15 Ks of the Boto mine development project, which is IAMGOLD's got a couple of million ounce reserve there, which they are permitted for. They've had the mining license application approved. They have their quarterly report coming out later today, tomorrow. Be interesting to see what they say. But they have started recruiting some positions for Boto. Typical early stage, sort of long lead positions for construction.
So how much have they spent to date on your project, your JV project?
I think the total spend up to now is around between 1.5 and 2 million.
Right, and what do they know?
What do they know? Well, they've done extensive drilling in Medina Barfay and Sarudia. This year, going into year 3, they're moving the team up to Faray. Now, Faray it's not truckable distance to Boto. It's about 50 Ks to the north. But Faray was the more advanced target under Stratex. That's where Stratex had done quite a bit of drilling. And Stratex had initially identified some pretty good lengths of, reasonably grading, 1.8 to, and then some shorter lengths of sort of higher grade, up to 83 grams, I think was the highest. And we're talking, 7 meters, 23 meters, 96 meters, I think was one of the lengths of intersection. So it's quite a complex structural area. It's dominated by a northwest structure trend with an east-northeaster, which is very, very similar to what Chessa Resources are drilling just 10 kilometers to the east of it, where they're having success. They announced today they've just restarted the drilling program up there. So we believe that's got the potential for a standalone, but we don't know what the resource is there yet. Stratex didn't complete a resource estimate before they signed the JV because they were distracted by the effort to get into the push.
And what about IAMGOLD? Do they plan to put out a resource during the 4 or 6 year period that they're going to be on?
They're putting in, this year they're putting in 10,000 meters of AC drilling at Faray.
Right.
They're not hanging around. Whether they will announce a resource there this year, who knows? I would imagine, I've worked on the other side of these kind of deals where I've been the major. And you're shooting yourself in the foot to some extent by giving the junior too tasty a target and then have to buy the junior out for an elevated price. So I think they're playing a longer game here. Boto is obviously very significant for them. If Boto goes ahead as a mine development, then the southern targets have the potential to be satellite supply and satellite feed for Bota. Fare as a standalone project would potentially again bring in more focus to that area for them.
Right.
When they get to 51%, then obviously they have more control. So I expect they would probably play things pretty quietly until we got to 51%.
Okay, and after that point, well, presuming they do go beyond that point, what are the terms? Are you carried here, or are you going to need to raise your own capital? Do you sit as a passenger? How does it work?
Well, we're carried to 70%, to their 70%,
Yeah,
and then beyond that, it's contribute or dilute with an ultimate backstop of an NSR position.
Yeah.
It's always tough in a minority position to defend your place. It's exactly the same position we had actually in Reservoir Minerals with Freeport McMoran earning in. They were earning into 75%. And at Reservoir, we were able to very successfully counter that and to realize the value from that asset. As I said, we made a $360 million sale of the company based on that. So for us, we want to stay in as long as we can to see the value build. This is not something we necessarily want to run away from right now. And we've got another 3.5 to 4 years before they reach their trigger point.
Okay.
So we've got plenty of time for those assets to be developed.
So same question again. How do you put a value on that today?
Well, okay. So if we did comparative value for licenses in the area, Chessa Resources is right next door. Their market cap is about 9 million UK sterling equivalent. Their footprint is it's probably an eighth or a ninth the footprint that we've got on the Sonala license. We've got 5 targets. They've got basically 1. So just from that, the fact that IAMGOLD are putting in an $8 million earning to get 70%, you could very easily just back calculate off that and say Sonala should be pushing out, Sonala alone should be pushing our market cap to 10 to 15 million, just based on that, I would expect. That's certainly one of the things that we as a management team recognized very early on was the ironic value addition of the requisition in 2017, which destroyed value for the company. I mean, it wrote 6 million off the share price. That ironically, what destroyed the value actually has put value back into us now.
Well, it hasn't if you look at the share price, right? If you look at the share price, it definitely hasn't done that. And if you look at the market cap, it definitely hasn't done that, right?
It's not being recognised by the market cap.
Therefore, it hasn't.
We recognise it as a management team.
Every management team recognises it. I get this from every CEO. Do you know what? We're undervalued, Matt. So
exactly. Yes, that's the default position.
Okay, but so far, with all the kind of non-focus stuff, the legacy stuff, it's hard to put a number on it because there's lots of information missing, okay? And you said in November, we're going to start to look to offload some of this, create some... you had a disposal strategy you talked about, I think.
Yeah, realising value from some assets.
Okay. That was only November. A couple of things have happened since then, obviously, in the market. I guess that process has been interrupted. But even so, how are you going to deliver on that disposal strategy this year in terms of, let's say, Turkey or even that Thani Stratex? You've got rid of Tembo. You've explained it's better to have got some money than no money, and it doesn't matter how much has been spent on it. And I can appreciate that position. How do you get the market to recognise even Senegal, even Sonala? I mean, it's not. What do you do?
Well, Senegal is a very it's quite binary, really. Boto gets an announcement they're going to go ahead and mine. It will have a knock-on effect just from a proximity play. The rest of the Sonala license, if they have continued success at Fare, you don't need to put in too many new holes to be able to start building a resource up there. We're not at the stage right now where there's enough drilling to hang a resource on that we would be happy to publish. but it wouldn't take more than maybe 5 holes to give us enough data for us to do that independently, which is, by the way, what we did with Reservoir. We run our own independent resource. So I think the strategy is with Senegal is hang in there, but the rest of the assets, we were able to offload Tembo at a pretty tough time in the market. We have brought in another. We had a private placement for 240,000 during the midst of February, during the COVID kickoff, and they actually paid a premium to get in. And that was just something that was at the gift of the board at the time. The Turkish assets, the Djibouti assets, the Egyptian assets, it's our stated goal to reduce our distraction and to realise value from non-core assets. I think it's fair to say those would be currently considered non-core assets. I can't obviously go into detail with anybody what discussions we're having, if we're having discussions, and if we were having discussions, what stage they may be at. But that is certainly going to be the focus for the remainder of this year, to realise value from those non-core assets so that we can keep our existing kitty topped up and be ready to move as soon as COVID lifts. And we can get into Cameroon, then be ready to move.
Well, let's talk about Cameroon. Let's go for Cameroon. Okay. Thanks for dealing with all of that. Okay. Sounds like you've got a...
I hope some of it made sense.
No, it does. And it's worth going through, because you sort of listen to the kind of commentary in the marketplace out there. People are confused as to what the plan is, because you've been at it 2 years, right? And all of the legacy projects are still there. You talked recently about a disposal strategy, and I guess people want to see you deliver on that. To maybe they've bought into your plan over, let's get some money in and do something sensible and proper with Cameroon. So let's talk about Cameroon. So what have you got? You seem quite pleased with it. So what have you got? What are you doing?
So we've got we're basically taking the company back to what it was. All those guys that voted at the requisition to move away, they've got their wish, their stated aim, which is to go for earlier stage projects again. And we've got 2 projects in the north, Bibemi and Wapuzi. So these were originally licenses that were explored by Reservoir Minerals. And there was a successful gold exploration program up there. Gold was discovered on both licenses. It's a significant trend. Cameroon is the Central Cameroon Shear Zone. Basically, it's a mobile belt between the Congo Craton and the West African Craton. So geologically, it's a very structurally complex area, but loads of opportunity for gold mineralization. Reservoir identified mineralization up there, did some early trenching and rock chipping and mapping. Those licenses, we wanted originally to spin those out when we were selling Reservoir, and we were not able to do that in the Nevsun takeover. So those licenses went to Nevsun. Nevsun walked away from them a couple of years ago because they were also looking to sell the company on. So it was the same partner, BEIG3. So we came in there a couple of years ago. We raised £1 million, which we've invested into the country, into those licenses. And we did some extensive trenching work. We remapped it, did some soil sampling up at Wapuzi. And we've identified 2 significant or strengthened and identified significant mineralized trends at Bibemi, which seem to be coalescing in the north. Good results from trenching, good results from grab sampling. And at Wapuzi, we've identified about 13 kilometers of anomalous gold as well. We haven't trenched there yet. And both projects, the next stage is really to do some drilling, which is what we were planning, before COVID hit. So initially a small drill program at Bibemi, around about 3,000 meters of short diamond holes to confirm the understanding of the structure and the vein systems that we've got. We identified 4 different vein systems, 2 of which are mineralized, 2 are not. We retested that hypothesis at the end of last year. We had a very brief spell in the field in December, January, before this all closed us down. And every single sample we took from what we classed as mineralized vein came back with mineralization, the highest grade being over an ounce, 35 grams. So the drilling program is really to consolidate our structural understanding and to start following up on what we've seen from the surface trenching to give a verticality to it, a 3-dimension.
How are you going to pay for all of this?
Well, that's going to be partially covered by the monies that we've been raising through asset realization. We've also had an offer from a cornerstone investor wanting to come in on the program there specifically as well. And then the other part of Cameroon is perhaps for the longer term look, or the bigger picture view, perhaps rather than longer term, is we picked up a 3,500 square kilometre license package in central Cameroon. Now this is absolutely prime country, and it's effectively a district scale package of licenses. If you were to stick the footprint over the KK inlier in Senegal, it would cover kind of half of the KK inlier. It's that sort of scale. And we know that there is gold mineralization on every single one of those licenses. I don't know how much of the history of Cameroon you're aware of from an exploration point of view, but this is if I can just digress a little bit and fill you in a bit on that, it'll perhaps explain why we're so excited about it. In the 1990s, Senegal and Mali were struggling a bit to get investment in mining and exploration. And they went to the World Bank and they took a loan, and they brought in international experts, primarily BRGM, the French Geological Survey, who are well known for their ability to map and do prospecting in West Africa in particular. And they did a big program in Senegal, big program in Mali to promote, to improve the database of the geology of the countries and to promote investment. And fast forward 20 years, and that's where we have all these mines now in Mali and Senegal. Cameroon are busy doing exactly the same thing. They went to the World Bank in 2012. They got a loan for about 30 million. They've been working with BRGM on the prospectivity of the entire country, remapping it, taking extreme SED samples, airborne geophysics, dating studies, a whole suite of prospectivity type work. Phase 1's completed, and that was put out last year in September. And phase 2 is now underway, which is the sort of the edge areas which were missed off in phase 1. Now, Cameroon has a lot of gold, but all of the gold that's being mined at the moment is alluvial, or primarily alluvial, along the eastern boundary of the country. And this has flown, it's flowed in from somewhere. We suggest it's come off the Cameroon, Central Cameroon shear zone and splays off it. And interestingly, the Central Cameroon shear zone, if you relocate South America and Africa, the Boborama trend, which was where Stratex International was investing in advanced stage projects in Brazil in 2017, or trying to, that's the same structural trend. It's the same gold trend. So we know there's gold in Cameroon. The Chinese are mining it. The South Koreans are mining it. The Cameroon government knows it. They brought in the World Bank to help them to develop an investment strategy, develop a database. They brought in GTK, the Finnish Geological Survey, to come in and revamp the mining law, revamp the licensing structure. There's now an online cadastre system. You can Google the licenses, you can check the ownership and that sort of thing. So they're making all the steps to make Cameroon a good investment destination. Now, we're already there because we have 2 operating licenses. And then this new push with these 8 new licenses, this 3,500 square Ks. This brings us as a first mover into a hugely prospective area of central Cameroon. Now, obviously,
Can I come back to the original question, which was, how do you find it? I see you as a geologist getting excited, right? Yep. I need to bring this back for shareholders, and we're going to go, well, how is this guy putting a plan together which is actually going to create some value for us? All right, so geology, I get. I was in Cameroon in 2013 and 14, early days when they were putting that plan together. Sat with the president, discussed it. Today, you've got a lot of optionality. What you don't have is a lot of cash, and you've got a depressed share price. So how do you finance it?
Well, two ways. First of all, we have reduced our spend significantly from Stratex days, year on year. I think if you look at it on a P&L basis, we're running at about close to half operating costs that we were. So we've had a strategy of cost reduction, which has been very successful. We have a strategy of realizing cash from assets.
You didn't answer, but you didn't tell me how much you'd realized or going to realize, though.
Well, we have, we brought in 240,000 from a private placement. We brought in 170,000 from Tembo. There's the potential to bring in significant funds from the royalty package in Turkey. There's the potential to bring in value from Thani Stratex Resources, Thani Stratex Djibouti. We have outstanding liabilities due to us, which we're chasing in Turkey. We have outstanding research and development tax credits, which we've been successful on for the last 2 years. And we've got another claim going in, or we will have another claim going in now.
There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential, but
I can't give you a number. I can't say we're going to turn around in 2 months' time and raise 100,000 or 100 million, because we don't know how much we're going to need to raise to top up the kitty until we've realised some of these asset programs.
So are you going to hold back on doing anything in Cameroon until you are a bit more sure of what you've got and you've got a plan together?
We have a plan.
Right.
We are prohibited from carrying on in Cameroon because we can't travel there. So, unfortunately, the COVID crisis means that our West African manager is stuck in Senegal, where he lives. Our Cameroon partners are stuck in Yaoundé. They can't travel to the north of the country easily without government approval. So practically, we cannot move into Cameroon right now anyway. We can't mobilize drill rigs. We can't mobilize crews. We are unable to move into country. As soon as we are able, we've got two options. We can get the ground crew going to do some follow-up mapping. We already have drill targets identified. We have drill sites pegged at Bibemi. And at that point, when we know that we can start to look at travel restrictions lifting, by that stage, we'll have realized some of these value-adding opportunities. And we'll be in a better position to say, okay, we need to raise X amount. We as a team would rather go out and raise as little as possible at this stage and fund as much of it as possible from our own kitty and from sale of assets that are non-core to reduce the dilution impact on existing shareholders.
Okay.
We're all existing shareholders ourselves.
So I just want to say what I'm hearing is that you are going to realize some of these assets before you then go back to market and try and raise some capital. Is that right? Okay. And at that point, you'll know how much you're going to raise. But between now and then, you're obviously burning through a bit of cash. Is there anything that you can do that you can't go to Cameroon, but is there anything that you're doing at the moment which is kind of trying to generate and create value? Like, are you having conversations about, realizing some of this potential by selling or offloading?
I can't. I would love to be able to tell you
exactly
what's happening on that side, but I'm afraid I can't because it's not public knowledge. All I can say is that you can be assured that we've not taken the enforced lockdown as an opportunity to sit and do nothing for 2 months. We've been actively talking to people on these matters for a significant amount of time. COVID has delayed a lot of things. And as you would imagine, this is exactly the kind of thing that COVID would have an impact on. We are, from that position, we're always talking to people about these types of value assets. But we're also working in the background. We have remote sensing available for Cameroon, so we're doing work on the central license package at the moment, for example, to make sure that when we are let in, all of that early stage desktop work that you would normally do is carrying on right now. Our West Africa manager's stuck in Senegal, but he's got a computer, so he can, he's already working on strategy and planning for structural targeting, following up on all of the stream seds that BRGM have, positive stream seds samples that BRGM have identified on those 8 license packages.
Okay, so you said you want to create value for shareholders because you are the management, you are shareholders, and the current deck says you've got 1.55%, which is about 50 grand. So it's not a lot.
Well, it wasn't 50 grand. It wasn't 50 grand when we bought it. I can guarantee you that. It was significantly more than that. I mean, you've got to remember a couple of things here. First of all, we've only been in the management team here for 1.5 years, 2 years. We've not been in since 2006. So there hasn't been a lot of time to build up significant positions. And in a lot of that, as we have now, we're in lockdown. Blackout periods are extensive when you're trying to sell assets and trying to realize value. So that's partially an issue. We're also aware that, or you should be aware, that the board and the management have taken significant options in lieu of salaries. So what people don't realize with the director shareholding and the management shareholding is, for example, most recently, the management and or management board have sacrificed a third of their year's income for share options. The share option scheme, rather than shares, is actually tax efficient for the company. So, as well as the fact that we bought our own shares in the public marketplace at higher prices than we're trading today, that should signify that we have a vested interest. The fact that we've sacrificed salary for 4 months should have a significant interest. And we've had a focus on realizing value by keeping the cash within the company. We could have taken higher salaries and used some of that extra income to buy more share position. It's not appropriate to do in a company this size.
How much cash have you got today?
Year end, I can't remember what our year end position was. I'd have to check back to the announcement, but Bob can probably jump in with a figure on that. But the other thing is that we've got, you got to remember here that we've got a significant interest by the fact that we're here doing this. I mean, you said yourself earlier in the interview, why didn't I not just get a clean shell and go after Cameroon? We are committed to adding value here, and that's part of the value that we bring. It would be very simple, it would be very easy.
How's that underdog looking? How's that underdog looking now to you?
It's looking really good. Cameroon there's a lot of value tied up in Turkey and Eastern Africa, and we're confident we're going to realize value from those at the appropriate time. Cameroon is looking fantastic. We really believe that as a new frontier, it ticks all the boxes for attracting. If you think carefully about the mid-tiers and the majors, where are they going to go next in West Africa, particularly? Cameroon is the gaping hole. It's the place that hasn't been visited yet, and you don't need much success there to start bringing the attention of the mid-tiers and the majors in. And we all have some good contacts in those larger companies. They're all interested in what we're doing. They're following our story very closely. And when we've de-risked our projects to a certain position, I'm sure they'll be wanting to learn a little bit more about them.
Do you think?
And then, of course, we have Senegal.
Yeah, you got Senegal. But none of those things you can really put a value on. I guess that's what the market's missing in the moment. With
Exactly.
3.5 million market cap.
That's why we're struggling with a low share price at the moment. Yeah.
Right, but you've been there 2 years. Do you think that you've told the story well? Do you think your shareholders, do you think new people looking at this understand what it is that you're trying to do there?
I think the shareholders who are looking at this as an early stage exploration play, new shareholders coming in, I think they understand what we're trying to do, and they probably understand the timelines that are likely to be tied to it. Existing shareholders, we have few from the Stratex days that on the retail side. Our tech and these guys are still in. They know the long-term story. They're in. They're comfortable.
But you've had quite a few shareholders leave as well, though, haven't you, during this time?
We had a few that came in for the more advanced push. People like Peter Gillenhammer, who was a significant shareholder, he came in for the reason of the advanced push into Borborema, into what was the investment in Brazil. And of course, the strategy of the company changed after the requisition, because that was what the shareholders wanted. So shareholders who didn't want that new strategy, which was the old strategy, they pulled out again. That's perfectly normal. An intelligent investor will follow the strategy of the company, and as and when that strategy changes, if it's no longer doing it for them.
Do you do a rollback? Are you going to do a rollback anytime soon? Because you've got 751 million shares out, £3.5 million company. You mean?
Now is not the time to do that.
Okay. Why?
Because we're busy with Cameroon, we're busy with asset realization. There's a lot of value we can add just by doing some very, very standard exploration, boots on the ground, advancing early stage projects in new frontiers. That's our real focus.
And what are you waiting for? When can you start delivering this value, do you think?
COVID. We need to. I was scheduled to be out in Cameroon in March. We were stuck there. We were able to, we have very good relationships with our partner there, and so on. We're able to move things forward through our partner, luckily, as our sort of in-country representative. But really, we want to get on the ground. We'd like to get some drills into Bibemi. We'd like to get the Cameroonian license package. We've had sight of the BRGM data from that area, which they showed around at the conference in September in Yaoundé last year. And there are multiple stream set anomalies of gold in every single one of those 8 licenses. I'm itching to get the team in there and follow up on those and get our own results out, so that we can make those public, and we can have our own data for that central package, which will, I'm sure, once that gets out, people will realise that they'll realise why we're so excited about it.
Okay, Tim, thank you very much for running through that. Great run through. It's difficult times for everyone. You've got a lot of things to sort out. I think besides COVID, you've got a lot of things to sort out. So best of luck with that this year. Stay in touch. Give us a call when things start to resolve themselves, or you can start to realise some of this potential. Offloading some of these legacy assets of yours. Okay, so appreciate your time today. We'll speak to you soon.
Thanks very much.